Hello and welcome to this Met Office presentation on community resilience. In this presentation, we're going to be focusing on Met Office weather warnings, the Met Office weather app, the Weather Ready campaign, and naming storms for the season 2020-2021. So what is community resilience? From the perspective of the Met Office, it's all about the weather information that we can provide to help you and your community plan for severe weather. One of the major ways that we do that is by providing Met Office weather warnings for potential severe weather, with the aim of helping you and your community to stay one step ahead of the possible impacts. Here we can see an example of a widespread and disruptive snow event that we had at the beginning of March 2018 in Dorset, but also many other parts of southwest England. We issued weather warnings a number of days ahead of this event, which allowed the community to plan and prepare to mitigate against the impacts from this expected severe weather. So let's have a closer look at the National Severe Weather Warning Service, or as we call it in the profession, NSWWS. It started back in 1988 following the Great Storm of October 1987. Unfortunately, this was a catastrophic and widespread major storm that affected southern United Kingdom and followed 18 fatalities and gave widespread damage to building, power cuts and travel disruption both at land and sea, as well as felling or damaging millions and millions of trees. Following this storm, there was an inquiry and the decision was made that a much better weather warning service needed to be in place to support and protect the public, as well as allowing emergency responders to have more time to respond and prepare and plan ahead of severe weather. So we've seen the service change quite a lot since 1988, and the main features we have now for the weather warning service are displayed here. We have 7 different types of weather that we warn for: rain, ice, lightning, snow, fog, wind and thunderstorm. And we can issue weather warnings up to 7 days ahead. It all depends on the forecast certainty. When we come to assess weather to see whether it's severe enough in the forecast to warrant the issue of a weather warning, we use the impact matrix, which is displayed here in the top left. And what we're looking at is likelihood against impact. And below the impact matrix, we have the impact tables. And what these do is they highlight what we can expect in terms of impacts from the different impact levels: very low, low, medium or high. So constantly, the Met Office, because we are a 24/7 organisation, we're constantly assessing the weather forecast against this impact matrix. But when we've got everyday weather, we would allocate it a green box, so we don't warn for that weather. But when the weather is allocated a yellow, amber or a red box, then we'll issue a severe weather warning. So let's have a look at the impact matrix for severe weather warnings in a bit more detail. On the left-hand side, we've got the likelihood, and this is the likelihood of impacts occurring from the severe weather, not the likelihood of the severe weather occurring, but the likelihood of impacts occurring from that severe weather. And that can be very low, low, medium or high. We also then plot that against the level of the impacts expected. And again, the impacts expected are very low, low, medium or high. And as already said, we don't warn for weather that's allocated a green box. So we allocate the severe weather a box and that is given a colour. But that's not the whole story. It's really important to understand the location of the tick in the box, where it is on that impact matrix. Let me give you an example. Here we have two severe weather warnings that have been allocated a yellow box, but they're in different places on the impact matrix, and they actually mean different things when it comes to the type of impact that is possible. So on the first one, on the left-hand side, we've got a high likelihood of low impacts. So we're expecting low impacts. So it's going to be a busy day, but manageable, so no major issues are expected. On the other hand, on the right-hand side, we have the tick in the box on a very low likelihood, but in the high impact column. So very low likelihood, but it could be a risk to life from the severe weather. So let's have a closer look at understanding impacts. And to do this, we worked very closely with many emergency responders across the United Kingdom, and we defined the levels of impact with them to ensure impacts in the warnings matched their perceptions and also their pressures. So as already indicated, very low is green boxes, and that is normal weather. But low impacts, when we get to medium likelihood and high likelihood, then we're expecting a lot of low impacts. It's going to be a busy day, but generally speaking, it's manageable. When we get into the medium impact column, then it's a short-term strain on emergency services. That's what's expected. An example of this is Storm Christoph, middle of January. Heavy rainfall weather warning was issued, and it led to medium impacts across parts of central and northern England and Wales. High impact is a prolonged strain on emergency services, and an example of this is the Somerset Levels flooding that we had in the winter of 2013-2014. So it's important to identify what impacts we are expecting from the severe weather. Other factors that we have to take into consideration when we're allocating the tick in the box and the impact matrix is location. Strong winds could mean that we might see big waves, and it could lead to coastal flooding, but we wouldn't expect to see that type of impact in an inland urban or an inland rural location. Have to think about current conditions, and here we're thinking about the ground conditions. So if we've got a severe weather warning out for rain, if the ground is already wet or saturated, it's not going to take a huge amount of rainfall to see some further flooding. But if the ground is dry and we see the same amount of rainfall, we might not see any impacts at all because the ground can absorb that rainfall without any impacts being seen. And also we need to understand, is it going to be a quiet or busy time of the day or week when the severe weather is going to occur? And also, if it's a severe weather warning for high winds, at the same wind strength, we would see more damage to trees in the summer because they've got leaves on than we would in the winter when they've got no leaves at all and they've got bare branches. So these three factors are very important when it comes to allocating that tick in the box in the impact matrix for our severe weather warning. Now we come on to an example of a severe weather warning, and on the top left here we've got the weather elements, snow and ice. That is what the weather warning is for, and the colour is yellow. But as we've seen already, it's important to understand where the tick is on the impact matrix. And on the right hand side we can see the impact matrix is showing a medium likelihood of low impacts. So we're expecting a busy day, but it should be manageable. So how long is this going to go on for? And the validity time at the top right says 0100 to 1800 on Sunday the 24th of January. So we know we've got about 17 hours of low impact snow and ice weather. Now we look at our map and we can see the area covered by the warning, and it's coloured up yellow. We can see that Dorset, along with other parts of southwest England, is going to be affected by this snow and ice. we have a headline, and this headline is less than 140 characters. So if you want to copy and paste that headline, you can use it in a tweet, for example. Under that, we have what to expect, and this gives us a list of the likely impacts. An example is some injuries from slips and falls on icy surfaces. We also have further details, which gives more weather information about the snow and ice. So, for example, amounts of snow, and also the issue date and time. For weather warnings that are issued well ahead of time, we may update a weather warning as we fine-tune the weather forecast. So if there is a significant change, then we will update that weather warning. Which leads us on to the point that it's very important to keep up to date with weather warnings as well as the weather forecast. It allows us to be proactive, it allows us to prepare and plan rather than be reactive, and it gives us an early heads up to what is coming. So here's an example of giving you some information, allowing you to prepare and plan ahead of time. So top right, we have a tweet from Wessex Water during a spell of very cold weather. And so they say, here's our advice to help wrap up your home and protect it from any frozen pipes. And one of the top tips to protect it from any frozen pipes is to ensure that pipes in cold areas are insulated. For example, if you have an outside tap. So we've talked about keeping up to date. We've talked about checking the latest forecast and regularly checking the weather warnings. But what you can do instead is every time there is a weather warning issued, you can have it automatically sent to you via email. To do this, you need to sign up for the Met Office weather warning email alerts, and you can do that by visiting the web page in blue there. Other ways of keeping up to date on the forecast and weather warnings is to use the Met Office app and the Met Office website. The Met Office app is free of charge and has many key features along with showing weather warnings. It also gives you a UK national weather forecast video and lots of other features as well that you might find of interest. One of my favourites is being able to access 7-day weather forecasts for the location that I'm in, and also being able to save up to 12 favourite locations. So coming back to weather warnings on the app, we can see here on the home page, on the first image on the left hand side there, that we have a banner at the bottom with a triangle and it says yellow warning of snow. If we click on that warning triangle, what it will do is that it will bring up more information about the weather warning, which is shown on the fourth image there. And here we can see a map of where the weather warning is, and it's focused on northern Scotland, and it's for snow at the yellow level. And then our last image here, by clicking on that icon, we can get more information about the weather warning and the validity, for example. And here we can see it's going on until 1500 today. We can also get more information about weather warnings from the Met Office website and also weather forecast videos that are on the home page of the Met Office website. And here you get a forecast and gives you added value information about the weather warning, which may be useful to you for preparing and planning with your community ahead of the severe weather. If social media is your thing, then we have 2 Twitter accounts where you can get more information about weather warnings, and also on Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook and YouTube. This is how weather warnings look on the website, very similar to the example we saw earlier of a severe weather warning. So now we're going to focus on the Weather Ready campaign. And this too is about severe weather, although it's not focusing particularly on severe weather warnings. What it's focusing on is giving advice about severe weather. So it will help you and your community and also our partner agencies prepare and cope or respond and recover from severe weather. And what this does, Weather Ready campaign, which is available all year round, is provide seasonal advice and particularly focuses on winter and summer seasons. It's hosted on the office website, on the web page below in blue, and we run it jointly with the Cabinet Office. We provide promotional material that you may wish to use within your community. On the left-hand side, we have an example of the poster that we're using for this winter with lots of top tips on how you can prepare and plan ahead of severe winter weather. We also have an email signature that you may wish to use, and we have the hashtag WeatherReady. So for more information on a promotional material, please visit the web page there that's in blue. Weather Ready seasonal advice is wide-ranging, and we've got examples here of 9 advice sections. For example, how cold weather affects your health, or winterproofing your bike. So obviously this seasonal advice changes with the seasons. Currently we've got winter advice, but by the time we get to April or May, we'll be changing to summer advice. For further information on this Weather Ready seasonal advice, please visit the web page there in blue at the bottom. So finally, we come on to naming storms for the season 2020-2021. So naming storms by us in the UK is to provide a single authoritative naming system for storms that affect not only the UK, but Ireland and the Netherlands. So the UK Met Office works with its counterparts in Ireland and the Netherlands when it comes to naming storms, because most of the storms that we name come off the Atlantic, in from the southwest or from the west. And we'll name a storm when it's expected to lead to medium or high impacts. So that's when the weather warning will be coloured up amber or red. Mainly it'll be around wind impacts, but we'll also consider rain and snow impacts, particularly if they're going to be high-end, medium or a high impact. An example of this is the recent storm Christoph. It wasn't really about the wind impacts, it was more about the heavy rain impacts, which resulted in flooding in central and northern parts of England and also parts of Wales. So why do we naming storms? So we go back to the first storm that was named in November 2015, Abigail, on the 10th of November. And the reason why we name them is that we want to raise awareness of severe weather with the public and to make them more aware of them, the severe weather that comes along with them and the potential danger from them. So what we're trying to do here is to help you and your community prepare and plan ahead of severe weather. Also, it's easier to follow progress of this severe weather around a named storm in the media, whether it's on the broadcast media, TV and radio, or digital or social media. And let me show you some examples that we have. Here from the media, Storm Christoph. So instantly we've got a named storm and then we have the weather that's expected along with that storm. So it's raising awareness of the storm, but also the severe weather that's expected. And here with Christoph, as we've already talked about, it was heavy rain. It was expected to give us severe weather and the severe impacts. As we can see that a major incident was declared in South Yorkshire. Storm Bella, it wasn't so much around the rain, but about the very strong winds. And these strong winds were during the Christmas period 2020, and we can see there Dorset, particularly the southern part of the county, was in an amber wind warning area, medium likelihood of medium impacts. So thank you very much indeed for listening to this Met Office presentation on community resilience.